This video was brought to you in part by the supporters of the AMTV Patreon. Thank you. Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome to Doctor Who Flux, Chapter 6, the finale of which, The Vanquishers. Now, there was I feel like I've said this nearly every chapter, but there was so much going on. I was performing when it was on broadcast. I had to wait 4 hours, avoided social media like a hawk, but I've finally seen it. I've seen it twice now, actually. I felt like I needed to. And I'm just going to say this now, I'm not going to be able to talk about every single point in this episode. Purely for the fact that there was so much going on, I'm still processing a lot of it. But as always, I wanted to give you lot my initial thoughts, reactions to the finale of this serialized series. So, just to pick up where we left off then, the Doctor is about to assumedly be disintegrated by Swarm. She avoids him by pressing B to strafe and dodges him, and is seemingly going to leave Division, go back to the universe, the main universe. But Swarm touches her just as she does that, which somehow allows her to split into three, so she's in three places at once. One of her is on Carvanista's ship with the Lupari himself and Bell. One of them rejoins her companions, plus Joseph Williamson and Kate Stewart in the Williamson tunnels, and the third version is still, in fact, at Division. And just to touch on the Division stuff for a sec, because after Chapter 5, I think a lot of us were expecting we were going to learn a lot about the Doctor's past and these past memories and stuff. We don't necessarily get a lot of that. What we get is the Azure does open the watch, as seen in the trailer, and the Doctor does see this twisted house, and the Ravagers inform her that this house holds all these past lives, all these past memories, you know, a twisted house, a house that can't possibly exist, that sort of thing. And they begin to disintegrate it, reform it, disintegrate it again. I guess it's like a sort of form of torture. The Doctor never enters the house, and just to jump to the end, the Doctor basically eventually gets the fob watch for herself, doesn't open it, and disposes of it in the TARDIS, where she hopes never to find it unless she really asks for it. Now, part of me saying this isn't the end of that. We still have 3 episodes of Jodie's run left, and it wouldn't surprise me, particularly in the last 2, if that becomes a talking point again. There's a few things that might become talking points again, but we'll get to that when we get there. So yeah, I was a bit surprised that they didn't really elaborate more on the Doctor's past, but again, it sort of reminds me when in the Moffat era, the whole name of the Doctor thing, I guess he was never going to reveal the Doctor's name, and it was all just one long string of bait, and the first question, Doctor Who ? So it sort of reminded me a little bit of that. So, but nothing too ground shattering. It didn't ruin my enjoyment of the episode. That's one thing I will say. I did enjoy the Vanquishers a lot, just in an entertainment value. This felt very blockbustery. This felt very action packed, sort of like the old RTD finales, especially Journey's End, with that sense of lots of companions or friends coming together to defeat this great enemy, and the enemy of which turns out to be primarily, it seems, the Sontarans. The first Sontaran finale in over 40 years. Yes, the Invasion of Time does exist. It's a great story. I love it. It's crazy. And that's exactly why I love it. And the Vanquishers certainly had that Invasion of Time energy, if you ask me. But I like seeing the Sontarans as the main villain. I feel, especially in New Who, a lot of the times, through characters like Strax, they're often portrayed as being the butt of a joke. They're not very competent, all that sort of stuff. So it's nice for the most part we actually get to see them as this manipulative, strategic warrior race. Yes, I do know there's the comedic bit with the whole chocolate thing. From what I understand, it's implied that Commander Shallow, great name by the way, is just he's gone off the rails and he's drunk on chocolate. It's like this drug to him. I don't think it's necessarily that of the whole Sontaran race, and the joke did make me chuckle, I'm not gonna lie, but did it need to be there? Probably not. You could have probably constructed another way to convince Shallow to get Claire and Jericho on board the ship, but it is what it is. But for the most part, I loved how the Sontarans deceived the Daleks and the Cybermen, because I do think they have the capability to do that. They have the intelligence to do that when they put their minds to it. Luring the Daleks and Cybermen into a trap to be destroyed by the Flux. Masterstroke. And there's a big Finnish audio, actually. I can't remember the title, but it's part of the War Doctor series. And the Sontarans in that, again, are actually displayed as a very cunning, manipulative, capable warrior race. So I'd love to see more stories like that where the Sontarans are actually taken seriously, because as a character piece for them, I really enjoyed them. And, you know, bar the chocolate stuff, even a lot of the smaller bits of humor worked, like when they're about to get Jericho and Claire into the, like, psychic machine or whatever, and the Sontaran says, you will either bring success to Sontar or death. And Jericho says, oh, what do we get for success? And the Sontaran pauses before going, death. And that sort of Sontaran humor I quite liked. In terms of some of the other characters, Williamson. Okay, so Joseph Williamson, obviously the Mad Mole who constructed the tunnels. He doesn't really, sadly, serve much of a purpose in this story apart from these are his tunnels, and then he's instructed to go, his work being completed. And that's nice enough, but he does literally walk away, never to be seen again, and it just sort of... It makes me think, did we need to see the representation of... Did we need the character of Williamson in this story? You could have had the Williamson tunnels, maybe paid allusion to him in like a flashback, but... And it's no disrespect against the actor playing him, I really enjoyed his performance, but part of me thinks now, I don't know if we needed Williamson necessarily in the story, as entertaining as he was. In terms of some of the others, the Grand Serpent and all that stuff, a lot of that feels a bit unfinished to me. Again, really enjoyed Craig Parkinson's performance. I love the sort of slight... Felt like a classic like action or comic strip villain in the best sense of the word. I did really enjoy his performance. But then he just sort of like, if you remember Ashad, the lone Cyberman in The Timeless Children in Series 12, just sort of gets shrunk and that's it. That kind of felt like what happened to the Grand Serpent. You know, he confronts Kate Stewart, who ambushes him with Vinda, and they throw him through one of the doors onto like an asteroid in space, and then that's it. And we never hear from him again. Again, part of me hopes that in these last 3 episodes he does pop up again, even if it's just quickly to, you know, try and tie something up. Because if not, that just seems like a great waste of not just a good actor, but an interesting character as well. And his presence, I like that he allied with the Sontarans, you know, the last sort of trying to cling on to power. But I just wanted more of him. Same with Kate Stewart. You know, we did get more of it in this story, but her presence just felt a bit diminished by everything else going on. Gemma Redgrave smashed it, by the way. Absolutely smashed it. I still think her scene with Grand Serpent in the last episode was my favourite she's ever done. But she puts in a good performance, and I love the relationship she's got going with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. And some people are saying, oh, but when Kate sees Jodie, there's no big, oh my god, you've changed and all this. But, you know, Kate's met, 5 regenerations now? She's very familiar with, like, who the Doctor is as a Time Lord and all that. So... I don't think, but what I'm saying is we don't need this grand reveal of like, look, it's a new Doctor. I didn't mind it, but I wanted a lot more of Kate. Again, it made me think, had Flux all 6 chapters like mainly taken place on Earth during this event, and maybe Kate had been a running character through it, that would have been cool. But sadly, for some of it, she just feels like she's added in there with not a great deal to do. So Carvanista actually had some of the most interesting bits to do in this episode for me. When we learn when he's trapped with the Doctor in the Sontaran ship, and the Sontaran commander boasts that his soldiers took out every last Lupar from their ships, meaning that Carvanista is the only member of his race left, that was quite a big moment, and I love the relish that the actor of the Sontaran commander, forgive me, his name's not coming to me, but the relish that actor gave to like announcing that he basically wiped out this guy's entire species, and like the look on his face. And Carvanista's reaction, I think, is fantastic. It's, you know, it's understated. He's just got that fixed stare before he announces he's going to kill every last Sontaran. I thought it was a really powerful moment, and to be honest, when he howls, like in the trailer, out of context, it does look a bit odd, but I thought the howl suited perfectly. That's, you know, clearly a Lupar's way of mourning their dead. I just wish there had been more time dedicated to this moment, because in one of the bits that didn't really hit for me is when they're in the TARDIS after, and literally Dan Lewis has just rescued Carvanista, and then they're on board the TARDIS, and Yaz goes, what's wrong with him? And Dan says, the Sontarans wiped out his entire people. And that's it. The scene literally cuts away, and we don't really mention it again. And it just feels a bit like a disservice. I know in 1 hour this episode has given itself so much to tie up, and we've got to move on, we've got to get to the next thing, we've got to solve this. But when you introduce a moment like that, I think, like, you know, your entire species has been wiped out. Think of when we first learned it about the Doctor back in, like, Eccleston's time. I know the Doctor's the main character, so it's probably a bit different. But think of how much weight that had, how much time was dedicated to this event, how that shaped the Doctor as a person. I would have loved to have seen that effect more on Carvanista. Because even at the end when they go off, yes, he's still got that distaste. He's like, I wish I'd never saved Dan, and I want these people off my ship. But there's not really further acknowledgement that his entire race is gone. So yeah, that was one thing I wish we could have had more elaboration on, because there was some really strong emotional groundwork there. And I think had it been pushed a little bit further, it could have been something really good. On the emotional front, though, one of my favourite, if not my favourite scene from this entire episode was towards the end, when you've got the Doctor and Yaz in the TARDIS. It's right at the end, everything's over, and Dan's going to look for like the TARDIS room so he can get himself settled. And the Doctor comes clean with Yaz and says, I shouldn't have kept things from you, I should have let you in, and that she wants to tell her everything. She's got tears in her eyes, they're really close to each other, the Thasmin stands are going crazy, they want them to kiss or just do something, and then Dan interrupts them saying, which way was it again? And you can see how gutted Yaz is about that, and in a way the Doctor. But I love that. I love that Jodie's Doctor is really starting to open up to Yaz, who I think really deserves it, having been with her for so long, and deserves to know what's going on, because they are the best of friends. So again, I really hope that gets pushed in these next 3 episodes. I'm not saying they need to get together, as it were, but I really want more of these like emotional like scenes between the two of them, and what impact that might have on each other. But yeah, just in terms of the acting from Mandip Gill and Jodie Whittaker, that was probably by far my favourite scene of the entire episode. And just to go on acting, Jodie Whittaker smashed it this week. She's been smashing it throughout the series, and I've enjoyed her performance in her era. But oh my goodness, this was something else. I mean, the way she confronts the Ravagers, that scene with her and Azure, where they're talking about the different faiths, about life and the destruction of the universe. That was a great scene of like clashing ideals coming together, I thought. I loved her, again, the moment with Carvanista. I love the teasing and the taunting she does of Grand Serpent when she's being interrogated, that the more playful side of the Doctor. I love the interaction she has with herself when there's two Jodies there. Lots of great little fun reactions. And again, that emotional scene at the end. It really shows, I think, Jodie's strengths as an actor. She can run this full gamut. We've seen it in loads of other projects she's done over the years, and Doctor Who's no exception to that. So the standout performance from me this week was certainly from Jodie. Just jumping to the Ravagers for a sec, Swarm and Azure. Now, I've talked before how I liked how powerful these guys came across, how the stakes they introduced seem really high, especially with things like the Flux. And we learned that they plan to offer the Doctor and the destruction of the universe to Time, which is the being on Atropos who is being, trapped by the Mori and so on and so forth. So again, I thought that would be quite an interesting threat. And when we go to Atropos and meet Time, who takes the form of Swarm at first, obviously the Flux has been extinguished and Time disposes of Swarm and Azure, just like that. Now, Azure doesn't seem too bothered about this. She says ascension, so it's almost like being diminished or whatever by Time is like a good thing for them, but I'm not really sure. It didn't really come across in terms. But they basically get pushed aside dead quick, and that seems to be a recurring thing these last few years, that the big bads get pushed aside super quick. And it's just a bit of a shame, because I would have loved Swarm and Azure to have really put up a big fight to the death, or gone out in like a blaze of glory or something. But to just be diminished at the last moment after they held all these cards, all this power, just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity maybe. And also Tek Tayoun doesn't come back, and, considering she was the one who found the Doctor, basically helped engineer Time Lord Society as we've come to know it, for her just to be destroyed, and that's it. It just, I don't know, maybe it's like they just needed to tie loose ends, but again, for it to be that easy, just seemed a little bit like, oh, okay, that's a thing, that's done now. But I think that's what the Vanquishers has the biggest trouble with, if there's any trouble, because with it being an hour long, and there's all these characters, and there's all these things to resolve, it's trying to do it all, and it doesn't have the time to really elaborate on a lot of things. I've even because there's so much, I've even forgotten to talk about Bel and Vinda. Bel and Vinda do reunite, and it's a really sweet moment. I love that little bit of dialogue they have between each other, where Bel reveals they're going to have a baby. Just that whole reunited scene is really sweet, and I did want to see them get back together, so I'm glad they didn't kill them off there. Thank you, Chris Chibnall and team. Thank you very much. And also Di's back. She's been freed, and she's very cold to Dan towards at the end. And I wasn't really bothered by it. I've seen some people be like, he saved you, or like he saved the universe. But I guess if we're thinking Like, you know, if you've been trapped for quite a while in this endless form, it's bound to, like, traumatize you just a little bit. So, and she does say maybe not tonight. So, you know, maybe it's not completely off the cards for Dan. I just didn't find that adverse reaction too distracting or too unrealistic, maybe. Claire and Jericho, I feel we haven't seen the last of Claire, basically. They get her from 1967, you know, she helps with the psychic load or whatever they call it. But there's little hints that the Sontaran says there's something different about you to her. At the very end when they drop off Claire with Kate Stewart, there's a shot of Claire where she looks sort of almost like uncertain. So I've got a feeling there is still more to her character and we might see her in these next 3 episodes. If we don't, then it just feels like these clues are being dropped for no real reason. But I hope she pops up again. With Jericho, I had a bad feeling, but bless him, he does go out in a blaze of glory. And Kevin McNally delivers a fantastic... He's been probably my favourite guest star of this series as Professor Eustachius Jericho. I love that he stares down the Sontaran, says his name, fires on them, just accepts his situation, lets the Flux take him. It's a really, well, I was getting emotional because I really like this character. I wanted to see this character succeed, and the fact that he doesn't is really upsetting. The only downside is, again, there's no time for the other characters, particularly Yaz and Dan, who've spent 3 years with him, to really elaborate on this. There's a quick shot where I think they say his name and look sad, but they don't get another chance to really talk about it or process it, you know, and which is such a shame. It harks back to the classic Who days, you know, like when Adric died in Earthshock, and then in the next episode they have one scene talking about it and then they move on. Obviously that was mainly because of how the show was made at the time, but, you know, to not really address it or even have one little scene just again felt like a massive missed opportunity. But on the whole, did I enjoy the Vanquishers? Again, from an entertainment value, yes, this felt like a proper comic strip ending in a good way, like lots of action, lots of things going on, lots of great set pieces. And by the way, the CGI in this episode and across Flux as a whole has been nothing short of outstanding. Like when the Dalek and Cybermen ships emerge and you've got all those fleets in the Flux take it looked magnificent. And again, I've not got the best eyesight, but for Doctor Who budget levels, it looked incredible. The only thing I didn't maybe like the CG wise was the effect of time, like the purple swirl thingy. But anything in space, like the ships, looked magnificent. So props to the CGI team on that. If this level of CGI is a result from not filming abroad, never go abroad again. Film it all here. You know what I mean? But no, I love the CGI. But I did enjoy the Vanquishers, as I said, on that very comic book action high level. Is it the most perfect finale ever? No. Was Flux a perfect series? No. But that's one thing I won't not hide, you know, because some people might skirt their opinions on it. But I really enjoyed Flux, like as a concept, as a 6-part series. Every week I have had a lot of fun. There's points I've not agreed with, there's points I've not necessarily enjoyed as much, but I've had a roaring good time, and it's just been nice to have Doctor Who back on. And again, props to the team for making Flux during the height of a pandemic. I mean, the fact they got it done at all is a miracle, and I can't wait to see where things turn next for the New Year's Day special, Eve of the Daleks. But of course, we'll talk more about that as we enter 2022. But yeah, that was my initial thoughts on the Vanquishers. Again, apologies I didn't go into every single detail because, as you've probably guessed if you've seen it, there is so much to delve into I couldn't possibly cover it all here. So if you enjoyed my initial thoughts, please leave a like on this video and let me know in the comments as well, what did you think of the Vanquishers? Did you enjoy it? Did you find it satisfying as a finale? Did you think it was a bit of a letdown? Just let me know any thoughts in those comments below. Do subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, we'd love to have you aboard. I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.